The rain-slicked highway stretched out like a black ribbon under the sodium glow of distant lights, and that's when I saw it, or rather, didn't see it. The motel's neon sign flickered. Vacancy, it promised, but as I pulled into the gravel lot, my headlights swept across the row of doors, and there it was, the gap. Room 6 should have been there, between 5 and 7. But the numbers jumped like a skipped heartbeat. Just empty space, a shadow where a door ought to be. I killed the engine of my old Ford, the kind that's seen too many miles from Chicago to the endless Midwest, and sat there for a moment, wiping fog from the windshield. It was past midnight, and the storm had chased me for hours. My name's Alex Harlan, and I'm just a guy who sells insurance out of a briefcase, door to door in small towns, the kind where everyone knows your business before you unpack your samples. This trip had been a grind, back-to-back meetings in Nebraska, a wrong turn somewhere in Iowa, and now this downpour that turned the world into a blurry watercolor. I needed a bed, not questions. Motels like this one dotted the interstate like forgotten punctuation, faded paint, buzzing signs, the faint smell of coffee from a lobby that doubled as a diner. I grabbed my duffel from the passenger seat and stepped out, the rain drumming on my jacket like impatient fingers. The office lights spilled yellow onto the wet pavement, and I pushed through the glass door, bells jingling overhead. Behind the counter sat an older woman, her hair pulled back in a grey bun, flipping through a magazine under a lamp that hummed softly. She looked up, her eyes sharp but not unfriendly, like she'd seen every weary traveller pull in here at odd hours. "Evening," she said, her voice carrying that flat Midwest twang. "Room for one?" "Yeah, just the night. Something quiet if you've got it." I set my bag down and fished out my credit card. The lobby was small, cluttered with faded brochures for local attractions, corn mazes, a county fair that had probably ended weeks ago. A coffee pot gurgled in the corner, and the air smelled of stale donuts and rain-soaked earth. She nodded, tapping at an ancient computer. "We've got plenty. Non-smoking, king bed? That'll be 65 plus tax." As she processed it, I glanced out the window at the row of rooms. They stretched in a straight line, doors painted a chipped blue, each with its own little stoop, and a single bulb flickering above. 1, 2, 3. I counted under my breath. 4, 5, skip, 7, 8. There it was again, that empty spot. No door, no number plaque, just a patch of wall where the siding met unevenly, like the building had been stitched together wrong. "Ma'am," I said, trying to keep it casual, "your rooms, looks like one's missing out there." "Number 6? She didn't look up, just slid the keycard across the counter. "Room 9, it said. "Old place. Sometimes the numbering gets off after Reno's. You'll be in 9, end of the row, quiet as a grave." I chuckled, but it came out forced. "Yeah, well, long as the bed's there." Paid up, grabbed my key and headed out. The rain had eased to a drizzle, turning the lot into a mirror of scattered lights. My boots crunched on gravel as I walked past the rooms, peering at that gap. Up close, it wasn't just missing a door. The wall looked patched, like drywall slapped over something hasty. No window, no vent, nothing. Just blank space, darker than the night around it. Room 9 was at the far end, past the office, where the highway noise faded into the whisper of wind through cornfields. I let myself in, the door creaking on hinges that needed oil. The room was standard issue. Beige carpet worn thin, a queen bed with a sagging mattress covered in a quilt that smelled faintly of mothballs. A nightstand with a Bible and a lamp that buzzed when I flicked it on. The TV was an old CRT, channels flickering with static-laced infomercials. Bathroom light worked, though the mirror had a cracked spiderwebbing from one corner. I dropped my bag, peeled off my wet clothes and sank onto the bed, the springs groaning under me. It was the kind of place where you could forget the world outside, except I couldn't shake that gap. From my window, cracked open for air, I could see it clearly. Rooms 5 and 7, bookending nothing. A truck rumbled by on the highway, its headlights briefly illuminating the spot, but no answers came with it. I told myself it was nothing, probably some plumbing issue, or they rented it out as storage. Small towns had quirks like that. I'd seen weirder, a diner in Ohio with no salt shakers, a gas station where the pumps always shorted a gallon. But as I lay there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, the quiet started to press in. The motel was dead silent, save for the occasional drip from the eaves, no footsteps from neighboring rooms, no TV murmurs bleeding through walls. It was like the place held its breath. I closed my eyes, willing sleep to come, but my mind wandered back to the drive. I'd passed this stretch before, hadn't I? Last spring, maybe, on another sales run. The sign had caught my eye then, too. Vacancy, always lit, no matter the hour. And the rooms. Had there been a gap then? I couldn't remember. Memory played tricks on the road, blending one empty highway with the next. A soft thud pulled me upright, from the wall, the one facing the missing room, like something heavy shifting behind it. I froze, heart picking up a notch, probably the AC kicking on, or the wind rattling loose siding. I got up, pressed my ear to the drywall, cool and smooth, no hum, no vibration, just silence again. Shaking it off, I grabbed a bottle of water from my bag and chugged it down, the plastic crinkling too loud in the stillness. By the time I climbed under the covers, the clock on the nightstand glowed 1:17 a.m. The rain had stopped, leaving only the faint chorus of crickets outside. I turned off the lamp, the room plunging into shadow, and tried to settle. But in the dark, shapes emerged from the corners, the outline of the dresser, the blur of the window curtains, and beyond, that empty space, waiting like an unspoken question. Sleep came in fits, broken by dreams of doors that wouldn't open, numbers that rearranged themselves. When I woke to the grey light of dawn filtering through the blinds, the motel felt different, less like a refuge, more like a pause in something unfinished. I showered quick, the water pressure weak but hot, and packed my bag. As I stepped out, the office woman was there again, wiping down the counter with a rag. "Sleep okay?" she asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "Fine, thanks." I handed over the key card. "That missing room, ever think about fixing the numbering? Looks odd." She paused, her rag stilling. A small smile tugged at her lips, gone as quick as it came. "Folks always notice that. Been that way longer than I've worked here. Part of the charm, I guess. Safe travels." I nodded, heading to my car. The lot was empty now, puddles reflecting the overcast sky. One last glance at the row, still no 6. Just that patch of wall, unremarkable in the morning light, but heavy with something I couldn't name. As I pulled onto the highway, the motel shrank in my rear view, its sign already flickering back to life. Vacancy. Always one room short. The highway unspooled ahead like a promise of normalcy, but my grip on the steering wheel tightened as the motel's sign faded from the mirror. It was one of those flat Iowa mornings, the kind where the sky hung low and grey, pressing down on the endless fields of corn stubble that flanked the road. I'd been driving these routes for years, insurance pitches in dusty town halls, handshakes over coffee in strip mall offices. But today, the familiarity felt off, like a song I'd known by heart but suddenly couldn't hum right. I flicked on the radio to shake it loose, static crackling before settling on a country station out of Des Moines. Some guy crooning about lost love and open roads, the kind of tune that usually lulled me into autopilot. But my mind kept drifting back to that gap in the row, the way the wall just ended. "Part of the charm," the woman had said. Charm. Right. I told myself to let it go. Probably some old renovation glitch. The kind of thing these roadside relics accumulated like dust. Motels didn't spring up overnight. They weathered storms and neglect, their quirks becoming part of the wallpaper. By noon, hunger gnawed at me, so I pulled off at the next exit for a diner I'd spotted on a faded sign miles back. It was one of those classic stops, chrome-edged counter, vinyl stools cracked from years of shifting weights, the air thick with the sizzle of bacon and percolating coffee. The place was half empty, a couple of truckers nursing mugs at a booth, a lone waitress in a pink uniform refilling them with mechanical efficiency. I slid onto a stool and ordered the special, eggs over easy, hash browns, and black coffee, watching the steam rise from the pot like a signal I couldn't read. As I ate, the conversation from the booth drifted over, low and rhythmic. The truckers were grizzled types, flannel shirts rolled to their elbows, talking about hauls and detours. That stretch by Eldridge, you know the one, always feels longer coming back. One chuckled, but it died quick. Heard they got a motel there, old joint. Vacancy sign never quits. My fork paused midway to my mouth. Eldridge, that was the town nearest the motel, or close enough. I strained to listen without turning, the clink of my plate masking the eavesdrop. Yeah, the other grunted, stirring sugar into his cup with a spoon that scraped like nails on tile. Stayed there once, back in '98. Rooms all lined up neat, but something missing. Like a tooth knocked out. Didn't think much then, but the dreams. The first one leaned in, voice dropping. The storyteller shrugged, glancing toward the window where semis rumbled past. Woke up feeling watched, like eyes on the back of your neck, even in the shower. Checked out early. Never went back. Place gives you the creeps if you let it. I swallowed hard, the eggs turning to paste in my throat. Watched. That thud against the wall last night, had it been imagination or something else, shifting just out of sight? I paid the bill quick, leaving a tip that was probably too much, and pushed back out into the parking lot. The air was crisp, carrying the faint tang of diesel and wet earth from an overnight sprinkle. My Ford waited like an old friend, but climbing in, I felt a prickle at the base of my skull, that irrational sense of being observed from the tree line across the road. Back on the interstate, the miles blurred, but the unease clung like road grime. I tried calling my wife, Sarah. Back in Chicago, her voice always grounded me after these trips. The phone rang twice before she picked up, her tone warm but edged with the day's fatigue. Alex, you sound beat. How's the road? Fine, just the usual. Rain last night, but it's clear now. I hesitated, fingers drumming the dash. Stayed at this motel off 80. Weird setup, rooms numbered funny. Missing one, like it was skipped. She laughed, soft and familiar. Missing? What, like a prank? You're overthinking it, hun. Probably just how they built it. Get some rest when you stop next. Yeah, probably. But hanging up, her words didn't settle it. Sarah knew my habits, the way I'd nitpick details on long drives, turning molehills into mountains. She'd tease me about it later, over dinner in our suburban kitchen. The kids clamoring for stories. But this felt different, not a quirk to file away with flat tires and bad coffee. The afternoon wore on, the sun breaking through in fits, casting long shadows over the median. I passed a sign for another rest area, but pushed on, aiming for Davenport by evening. That's when the repetition started, subtle at first. A billboard for Route 6, tires always one step ahead, the number jumping out like a taunt. Then on the radio, an ad for a local hardware store. Room 6 in our tool aisle, best deals in town. Coincidence, sure. 6 was a common number, doors and highways full of them, but my pulse quickened anyway, a low hum building in my chest. By the time I hit the outskirts of the next small town, Quincy, population 400, according to the welcome sign, the light was fading to that bruised purple of dusk. I needed gas, so I pulled into a station on the edge, pumps glowing under fluorescent buzz. The attendant was a kid, maybe 20, wiping down a nozzle with a rag. As I swiped my card, I couldn't help it. "Hey, you know that motel back west off the highway? The one with the vacancy sign always on?" He looked up, eyes narrowing like I'd asked about the weather in hell. "The Blue Ridge? Yeah, why?" "Just curious. Rooms seem off, like one's not there." The kid snorted, but it was uneasy, his rag twisting tighter. "Heard that before. Folks say it's been missing forever. Owner's some recluse, doesn't talk. But night shifts there? You hear things? Whispers through the walls, like someone's pacing next door when no one's checked in." He glanced over his shoulder toward the darkening fields. "Me? I avoid it. Stick to the chain places." I nodded, topping off the tank, but his words lodged like a splinter. Whispers, pacing. Back in the car, the engine's rumble did little to drown the echo. The road curved gently, leading into Quincy proper, a cluster of brick storefronts, a single traffic light blinking yellow. I found a modest inn on the main drag, the kind with a front desk manned by a retiree and rooms that smelled of fresh linen. Checked in without incident. Room 12 this time, no skips, no gaps. Dinner was takeout from a nearby sub-shop, eaten at a wobbly table by the window. The town outside was quiet, families heading home, porch lights flicking on, normal, safe. But as night deepened, I found myself pacing the room, the carpet muffling my steps. That isolation crept in again, the kind that amplified every creak of the building settling. I drew the curtains, but not before scanning the street, empty save for a lone figure at the far end, standing too still under a street lamp, probably waiting for a ride. Still, I double-locked the door. Lying in bed, the ceiling fan whirred overhead, casting slow shadows. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "Drive safe tomorrow. Love you," I replied, but sleep evaded me, my thoughts circling back to the motel. What if it wasn't just a missing door? What if that space was deliberate, a void holding something back or keeping it in? The idea was ridiculous, born of fatigue and too many miles. Yet in the quiet it took root, whispering doubts that followed me into uneasy dreams. Morning came with birdsong filtering through the glass, the town stirring to life. I packed quickly, eager to put distance between me and the highway's pull, but as I merged back onto the interstate, the rear view held no answers, only the endless ribbon of asphalt stretching east. The motel's shadow lingered, though, a quiet insistence that this trip wasn't over. Not yet. The interstate hummed beneath my tires as I left Quincy behind, the town's silhouette dissolving into the haze of another overcast morning. I'd slept poorly, the fans were blending with half-remembered echoes of footsteps that weren't mine. Sarah's text glowed on my phone from the passenger seat, a small anchor in the drift of the day. I needed to focus, another sales stop in Peoria by afternoon, then home by evening if the traffic cooperated. But the road had a way of stretching time, turning routine into something elastic, and my mind kept snagging on that motel like a loose thread. I passed a mile marker, 6 miles to the next exit, and felt that familiar twitch in my gut. Coincidences, I reminded myself, accelerating past a semi that belched exhaust into the median. The radio stayed off this time. Static felt too much like whispers waiting to form words. Instead, I replayed the gas station kid's story in my head, pacing behind the walls, as if the building itself had a secret rhythm. Ridiculous. I'd chalk it up to small-town folklore, the kind that kept lonely nights interesting. Yet doubt had a quiet way of rooting, making every shadow on the dashboard seem deliberate. By mid-morning, the sky cleared enough for sunlight to slant across the fields, turning the stubble gold. I pulled over at a rest area for coffee, vending machine brew, bitter and scalding in a paper cup. The place was sparse, a few picnic tables scarred by initials, a map board faded from weather. An older man in a windbreaker sat on a bench, staring at the horizon, his hands folded like he was waiting for something specific. I nodded as I passed, but he didn't look up. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection stared back, bags under my eyes, stubble shadowing my jaw. I looked like a man who'd aged a day too fast, and for a moment I wondered if the motel had marked me somehow, an invisible stain. Back on the road, the unease sharpened when my GPS chimed. A detour suggested construction ahead, reroute via a secondary highway. I accepted, figuring it would shave time. The voice was calm, synthetic. In 6 miles, turn right. There it was again. I gripped the wheel tighter, scanning the signs. Sure enough, the exit loomed. Route 6, alternate. My heart stuttered, but I took it. The pavement narrowing to 2 lanes, flanked by deeper woods now, the cornfields giving way to thicker underbrush. The detour looped south, away from the interstate's straight shot, and soon the landscape felt unfamiliar. Fewer billboards, more isolation, the kind where cell signal flickered like a bad connection. That's when the first real pull hit. A weathered sign caught my eye. Blue Ridge Motel, 6 miles ahead. Clean beds, quiet nights. I blinked hard, easing off the gas. It couldn't be. I'd driven east for hours. This should be miles behind me. But there it was. The name unmistakable. The arrow pointing down a side road that mirrored the one I'd left at dawn. A wrong turn. The GPS recalculated silently. No explanation. I pulled onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires, and checked my phone. No bars. Just a blank screen mocking my confusion. The woods pressed close, branches tapping the car like fingers testing the glass. I sat there, engine idling, debating. Turn back, ignore it. Peoria could wait, or I could call ahead. But curiosity, that old road companion, whispered otherwise. What if it was a sign? Not literal, but something pulling me to answers. The gap in the rooms, the stories, they nagged like an unsolved puzzle, and puzzles were my weakness, the reason I lingered over client files late into the night. Sarah would say I was chasing ghosts, but she wasn't here, feeling the air thicken with unspoken questions. I followed the sign, the side road winding through trees that arched overhead, dappling the windshield with shadow. 5 minutes in, the motel emerged from a curve, its neon sign already buzzing faintly in the daylight. Vacancy. My stomach dropped. It was the same place, no doubt. The row of doors stretching identical, the office light spilling yellow. But how? The detour had circled me back, a loop in the flat Midwest, where loops shouldn't exist. I parked in the gravel lot, same spot as last night, and stepped out. The air smelled of damp leaves and faint motor oil, the highway distant now, muffled by the woods. The office door jingled as I entered, and there she was, the grey-bunned woman, same magazine open on the counter as if no time had passed. She looked up, her sharp eyes registering mild surprise. Or was it recognition? Back already. Rough drive. I leaned on the counter, trying to sound casual. Detour brought me around. Weird, right? Thought I was headed east. She closed the magazine with a soft snap. Happens more than you'd think. These roads play tricks, old alignments, forgotten cuts. Need a room again? Part of me wanted to say no, to ask about the gap outright, demand if she'd seen other travelers loop back like this. But her tone was even, practiced, like she'd fielded the question 100 times. Just curious about that missing room. Number 6. What's the story? Her smile was thin, not reaching her eyes. Told you, old Reno. Skipped it for plumbing or something. Folks fixate on it, but it's harmless. Want coffee while you decide? I declined, but lingered, glancing out at the row. From here, the gap looked smaller, almost natural, like the building had grown around an absence. A car pulled in behind mine, an SUV, family plates from Illinois, and the woman busied herself with their check-in, her voice murmuring welcomes. I slipped out, walking the line of doors again. Room 5's curtain twitched, or did it? No light behind, just the flutter of fabric in a breeze that wasn't there. At the gap, I reached out, fingers brushing the patched wall. It was cool, seamless, but beneath, a faint vibration hummed, like a pulse or machinery idling far away. Back in my car, I didn't leave. Instead, I drove a short loop on the side road, testing. It spat me out onto the interstate, eastbound, the motel vanishing behind. But 10 miles on, the GPS chimed again. Detour recommended, construction ahead. Route 6, alternate. The pattern closed in, a repetition that mocked free will. I pulled over at the next overlook, hands shaking as I lit a cigarette. First in months, the smoke acrid and grounding. Below, the highway snaked through valleys, but my eyes traced back west, toward that flickering sign. By afternoon, I was back at the motel, key card for room 9 in hand. The woman hadn't questioned it, just handed over the card with a nod. Sometimes the road knows best. Her words hung as I entered the room. The quilt still rumpled from my last stay, or had housekeeping skipped it. The Bible on the nightstand lay open to Revelation 6, verses about seals breaking, though I snapped it shut quick. Outside, the family in the SUV unpacked, kids laughing as they hauled bags to room 4. Normal sounds, but they amplified the quiet, pressing from the walls. I sat on the bed, phone still silent, the isolation settling like fog, watched. That's what the trucker had said. Now, with the loop tightening, I felt it. Not eyes, exactly, but awareness, as if the missing room observed through cracks in reality. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, the water stains shifting in the light like a face half-formed. Sleep tugged, but dreams waited, full of doors that led nowhere and numbers that circled endlessly. The highway outside whispered promises of escape, but deep down, I knew. The pull was stronger now, drawing me into the void one reluctant step at a time. The shadows in room 9 lengthened as the afternoon sun dipped behind the trees, turning the room into a patchwork of dim corners and muted light. I hadn't moved much since checking in, the keycard heavy in my pocket like an admission of defeat. The bed creaked under my weight as I shifted, the quilt's folds holding the faint imprint of my earlier visit. Or was it imagination? Housekeeping carts stood idle in the lot outside, but no one had knocked, no fresh towels or turned down sheets. The place felt suspended, as if time had folded back on itself, leaving me in the crease. I paced to the window, parting the curtains just enough to peer at the row. The family from the SUV had settled into room 4, their laughter spilling out in bursts. Kids chasing each other around the stoop, the parents unloading coolers with the easy rhythm of a weekend getaway. Normal, enviable. From here, the gap between 5 and 7 looked narrower, almost inviting, like a shortcut through the building's logic. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, watching dust motes dance in the slanting light. The vibration I'd felt earlier hummed faintly through the wall again, a low thrum that synced with my pulse, then faded. Coincidence? Or the AC cycling on? I couldn't tell anymore. Doubt had blurred the edges of everything. Sarah's phone was dead silent, no signal, no bars flickering to life. I'd tried earlier, standing in the lot with my arm raised like some ritual, but the woods swallowed the connection. Isolation crept in deeper now, not just from the road, but from the world I'd left behind. Chicago felt like a dream, our split-level house in the suburbs. The kids' bikes on the driveway, Sunday barbecues with neighbors trading stories over ribs. Here, it was just me and the motel's quiet insistence, the vacancy sign outside buzzing like a persistent thought. I sank onto the edge of the bed, rubbing my temples. The detour, the sign, it had to be a glitch, a mapping error in the GPS. Roads in the Midwest twisted like that sometimes. Old farm paths overlapping with interstates, fooling even locals. But the repetition gnawed at me. I pulled out the road atlas from my glove box earlier, its pages yellowed and dog-eared from years of sales routes. Tracing the lines with my finger, I found no loop, no alternate that circled back so neatly. Route 6 ran straight east-west, a vein through Iowa's heart, no detours marked for construction that wasn't there. I folded it shut, the snap echoing too loud. Maybe the woman at the desk knew more. Her casual deflection about the roads playing tricks. She'd said it like a line from a script, one she'd recited to unraveling guests before me. I considered asking again, but the thought of facing her steady gaze made my skin prickle. What if she saw right through, knew I was looping not just the road, but my own unraveling thoughts? Dusk fell early under the canopy of trees, the sky bruising to indigo. I flicked on the lamp, its buzz joining the chorus of subtle sounds. The distant hum of the highway, a faucet drip in the bathroom, the faint rustle of leaves against the window. Hunger pulled me up. I hadn't eaten since the sub shop in Quincy, but the office coffee pot tempted more than solid food. Stepping out, the air carried a chill, the lot emptying as the family retreated indoors, their SUV's taillights winking off. The office door jingled again, and the woman looked up from a ledger, her pen pausing mid-scratch. "Settling in?" she asked, voice even, like we were old acquaintances. "Yeah, mind if I grab some coffee?" I nodded at the pot, its contents dark and steaming. She poured a styrofoam cup without a word, sliding it over. Up close, her hands were steady, knuckles etched with faint lines from years of the same motions. I sipped. The brew was strong, bitter enough to ground me, and glanced at the ledger. Pages of check-ins, names in neat columns. Harlan, room 9, twice now. "These detours," I said, keeping it light, "they always loop back here? Feels like the road's got a mind of its own." She closed the book softly, her eyes meeting mine for the first time without that veil of routine. "Some say it does. Old highway, built over even older paths. Folks get turned around, come back asking questions. But most move on come morning." A pause, her gaze drifting to the window, where the vacancy sign cast red flickers across the gravel. "That missing room bothers you, doesn't it? Always does for the ones who notice." I set the cup down, steam curling between us. "What's really there behind the patch?" Her smile was small, almost pitying. "Nothing you need to chase. Sleep on it. The road straightens out after." I left with the coffee, her words trailing like smoke. Back in the room, I locked the door, double-checked the chain, and wedged a chair under the knob, an old habit from sketchy stops in my early sales days. The family next door had gone quiet. No more laughter, just the soft murmur of a TV through the wall. I ate a protein bar from my bag, the wrapper crinkling in the stillness, and tried the phone again. One bar now, flickering. Sarah's voicemail clicked on. "Hey, it's me! Roads being weird. Detours. Call you tomorrow. Love you." But as I hung up, the vibration returned, stronger this time, emanating from the wall shared with the gap. Not a hum, but a rhythm, like breathing, slow and deliberate. I approached it cautiously, ear to the drywall. The surface was warm now, unnaturally so, and beneath the steady in-out, whispers filtered through, indistinct, layered, like voices overlapping in a crowd too far to make out. My name? No, just static, or wind through cracks I couldn't see. Heart pounding, I backed away, the room suddenly too small, the air thick with that sense of surveillance. Not eyes, but presence. Something aware, patient, drawing me into its pattern. The repetitions weren't random. They were invitations, pulling me closer to whatever the void concealed. Night deepened, the clock ticking past 10. I lay on the bed fully clothed, boots on, staring at the ceiling where the water stains seemed to shift, forming outlines of doors and numbers. Dreams tugged at the edges of wakefulness, endless highways looping, rooms multiplying, then vanishing, the woman's face blurring into the wall. A soft knock echoed, not at my door, but from the gap's direction, insistent, like knuckles on hidden wood. I bolted upright, sweat beading on my neck, but the room was silent again, the only sound my ragged breath. The pull was undeniable now, a quiet compulsion to uncover, to press against the patch until it gave. But doubt warred with it. What if peeling back revealed nothing, just empty space, mocking my frayed nerves? Or worse, something that made the isolation permanent. Outside, the vacancy sign buzzed on, promising rest to the next lost soul. I closed my eyes, willing the morning to break the spell, but the whispers lingered, faint and coaxing as the night wrapped tighter around the motel and me. The whispers didn't stop as the night wore on, threading through the walls like smoke seeping under a door you can't quite seal. I lay there on the bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, the water stain above me resolving into shapes that shifted with every blink, now a doorway, now a face half turned away, now nothing at all. The knock had come only once, but its echo lingered in my chest, a hollow rap that synced with the rhythm of my breathing. I told myself it was the family next door, or the wind finding a loose panel, but the lie tasted thin, like the last dregs of that office coffee. By midnight the room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the motel itself was contracting around me. I sat up, the springs protesting softly, and paced to the window again. The lot outside was a void of shadows, the vacancy sign's red glow pulsing like a distant heartbeat. No cars had pulled in since the family. The highway's rumble had faded to a murmur, leaving only the wood's quiet rustle. I drew the curtains tight, but the darkness behind them pressed back, insistent. Sarah's voicemail played in my mind on loop, her voice a lifeline I couldn't grasp, and I wondered if she'd worry come morning, if the kids would ask why Dad's call hadn't come through. Normal worries, the kind that grounded a man on the road. But here, they twisted, making the isolation feel chosen, like I'd stepped off the map of my own accord. The vibration from the wall grew steadier, not louder, but more deliberate, pulling my gaze back to the shared boundary with the gap. It wasn't mechanical anymore. It felt organic, a subtle rise and fall that mimicked the tide of breath in an empty room. I approached it slowly, my socked feet silent on the carpet, and placed a palm against the drywall. Warmth bloomed under my skin, faint but undeniable, spreading up my arm like ink in water. The whispers sharpened, not words exactly, but fragments. A sigh, a murmur of movement, the soft scrape of something shifting just beyond reach. My name wasn't among them, but the intimacy of it all made it feel personal, as if the space knew me, had been waiting for someone like me to linger long enough to listen. I pressed my ear closer, the surface yielding slightly under pressure, like flesh giving way. The sounds resolved into a pattern, footsteps, light and measured, pacing a floor that shouldn't exist. Back and forth, pausing at intervals, as if measuring the confines of an unseen cage. No voices now, just the rhythm of presence, alive and restless. My mind reeled, piecing together the fragments. The detours that looped me back, the woman's knowing smile, the trucker's talk of being watched. It wasn't a room missing, it was a room holding, containing something that bled through the edges of reality. Not a ghost, not some spectral cliché from roadside tales, but a pocket of the world, folded in on itself, where time and travelers got caught, repeating their patterns until the pull claimed them fully. The realization settled cold in my gut, not terror exactly, but a profound unease, like staring into a mirror and seeing your reflection blink out of sync. I'd felt it building all day. The repetitions, the coincidences stacking like cards in a house of mirrors. The motel wasn't a quirk of construction. It was a lure, drawing the weary, the curious, into its orbit. How many others had stood here, palm to the wall, hearing their own isolation echoed back? The family in room 4, were they looping too or just passing through, oblivious to the void next door? I pulled away, hand tingling, and back to the bed, sinking down as if my legs had forgotten how to hold me. The clock glowed, 2:14 a.m., its digits unchanging in the dim light from the nightstand lamp I'd left on. I didn't dare turn it off. Darkness would amplify everything, make the whispers roar. Instead, I grabbed the Bible from the drawer, flipping through its thin pages not for solace, but distraction. Revelation again, the seals and the lamb, but the words blurred, meaningless against the thrum from the wall. I slammed it shut, the sound sharp in the quiet, and stood once more. The compulsion was iron now, a quiet command to confront it, to press harder, to find the seam where the patch met the truth. My fingers itched for a tool, a key, a coin, anything to pry, but reason clawed back, whispering of consequences. What if opening it didn't free anything but trapped me instead? Hours blurred, the night stretching elastic as the road had done. The pacing behind the wall quickened, then slowed, mirroring my own rising panic. I imagined the space beyond, not empty, but filled with echoes of past guests. Salesmen like me, families on detours, all pacing their private circuits, their lives folding into the motel's endless vacancy. The woman at the desk, she knew, had to. Her ledger wasn't just names. It was a tally of the drawn in, the ones who noticed and stayed too long. Part of the charm, she'd said. Charm. A veil for the pull that now hooked deep in my chest, making escape feel like betrayal. Dawn crept in grey and reluctant, filtering through the curtains in slivers. The whispers faded with the light, the vibration ebbing to nothing, leaving only the wall's cool blankness. I packed my bag mechanically, the motions rote, but my eyes kept drifting to that boundary. The lot stirred outside, the family loading their SUV, voices cheerful as they called goodbyes to the emptying night. I stepped out, keycard surrendered at the office where the woman waited, her magazine already open. "Leaving us so soon?" she asked, voice neutral, eyes flicking to the window. "Yeah, road calls." I hesitated at the door. "That space next to 7, it's not just plumbing, is it?" She didn't look up. "Some things are better left as they are. Safe travels, Mr. Harlan. Try not to loop back." I nodded, the words landing like a gentle warning, and walked to my car. The engine turned over smoothly, the highway unfolding east once more. No detours chiming from the GPS. The motel shrank in the rear view, its sign flickering off with the morning, but the pull lingered. A faint tug in my thoughts, a whisper that followed the miles. Home waited, Sarah and the kids, the routine of suburbs and sales calls. But as the fields blurred past, I wondered, would the next wrong turn bring me back? Or had I carried a piece of the void with me, who pacing quietly in the corners of my mind? The road stretched on, straight and silent, but nothing felt certain anymore.